Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into something pretty complex, something I know is on people's minds, understanding the discrimination transgender people face.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
You shared this AI analysis, and what we want to do is, cut through the noise a bit, try and figure out why this discrimination is still happening.
Exactly. Not to justify it, absolutely not.
Sure.
But to get some insight.
Right. Because the analysis points to things like, fear, traditional gender ideas, misinformation. Quite a mix. So let's dig in.
Okay, yeah. The analysis gives us a good starting point, a way to look at the roots of it. Let's start with that first one. Fear of the unknown, or maybe the different. It feels like it's more than just, being uncomfortable on the surface, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. If someone's view of the world is very, very fixed, like strictly male-female, then encountering trans identities can feel genuinely, disruptive.
Right. And there's some psychology behind that, suggesting this discomfort, it often comes from needing clear boxes, clear categories.
Yeah.
So when trans identities kind of blur those lines, it can cause this cognitive dissonance, and some people react negatively to push that discomfort away.
That makes a lot of sense. And it connects straight into the next point, doesn't it? These traditional gender roles and norms.
Yeah, they're so deep in our society, often we don't even notice them.
Think about just basic things like restrooms or even sports leagues. Historically, they're built on this binary idea, right? Two distinct genders.
Exactly. And transgender people, just by living their lives, challenge that setup.
Yeah.
And for some, that challenge feels unsettling.
Yeah, unsettling's a good word. Then you layer on the misinformation and lack of education. That stuff spreads so fast.
It really does. And it's damaging. It highlights how important accurate information is.
Totally.
When you have media or, public figures pushing misleading stuff, fear-based narratives instead of facts, it obviously fuels prejudice.
Yeah, inevitably. The analysis also mentions religious or moral beliefs. That's obviously a really sensitive area.
It is. And it's important to acknowledge that for some people, certain interpretations within their beliefs can lead to disapproval.
But not all interpretations, right?
Absolutely not. It's crucial to remember that views vary massively within any religion or belief system. Disapproval isn't universal by any means. It just shows how personal beliefs can intersect with these big social issues.
Okay. And it's not just personal beliefs operating in a vacuum. There are wider social and cultural influences too. Like prejudice isn't always innate. It can be learned.
Precisely. Social learning theory talks about this, how biases can be picked up maybe from a young age just by observing and seeing societal norms reinforced. It keeps the cycle going.
Right, right. Now, here's one that really made me think. The desire to maintain social hierarchies.
Ah, yes.
It suggests that sometimes discrimination isn't just misunderstanding. It can be about, power.
Yeah, that's drawing on ideas like social identity theory. The thinking is that dominant groups might see the growing visibility and acceptance of trans people as a threat to their own status.
So they push back.
Potentially, yeah. As a way to kind of maintain that existing hierarchy. It's complex.
It really is. It even mentions emotional insecurity, like putting others down to feel better about yourself. That's kind of sad, actually.
It is, but it points to the psychological side of prejudice. Sometimes focusing on someone else's perceived difference can be a sort of defense mechanism for people dealing with their own stuff.
And then, unfortunately, there are the political motivations. It really feels like trans rights have become a political football lately.
Yeah, that's definitely happened. The analysis points out how misinformation can be used strategically, for political leverage.
Which just divides people further.
And has real negative impacts on trans individuals. Absolutely.
The analysis does briefly touch on progress, like in the UK regarding legal rights, which is good.
It is, yeah. Some steps forward.
But it also stresses, quite rightly, that laws on paper don't just magically erase discrimination in everyday life, accessing services, employment, facing hate crimes.
That's such a critical point. Laws are the foundation, definitely. But real societal change, that needs shifts in attitudes, in understanding. It goes way beyond just legal compliance.
And what really hits home is the part about basic human needs, like using a restroom, and how focusing purely on anatomy is it's dehumanizing. It completely misses the person's humanity.
Totally. And it's interesting to look back historically, isn't it? Norms around bodies, gender expression, they varied so much across cultures and times.
Right. It shows how much of what we think is normal is actually just constructed by society.
Exactly. It's not fixed.
So I guess bringing it all together for the listener, understanding these complex roots, it's not about saying the discrimination is okay.
Not at all.
It's about getting that clearer picture, those aha moments, so we can actually challenge these attitudes effectively, build something more equitable.
Precisely. Understanding where prejudice comes from gives us better tools to actually address it.
So quick recap. Discrimination against trans people isn't based on anything justifiable. It's this tangled web of fear, misunderstanding, clinging to old norms, and sometimes, yeah, about maintaining power.
That really sums it up, a complex interplay.
So maybe a final thought to leave people with, now that we've sort of unpacked some of the origins of this prejudice, how can knowing that be a tool? What part can each of us play, in either reinforcing these things, maybe without realizing, or actively challenging them in our own worlds?
A really important question to mull over.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
This is DigitView.